Hello, we're going to get started in about 8 minutes. So for those of you that are online, the same type of thing. I did get it right.
It worked for a second and then it went back off.
Oh yeah.
I can hear, yeah, I can hear it's fine. Someone sitting there. We checked it earlier.
I don't. I was just.
I think it may overwhelm the microphone. You doing? Fine, how are you doing?
Good.
Another day, another SSL bug.
Yeah, I saw that. You know. You're on your show.
Yeah.
Hi, Ted.
Hi, how you doing, Davida?
Pretty good. How are you?
Enjoying another SSL bug.
What's that?
Another SSL bug. Had to get a bunch. What,
Yeah.
300 servers to patch or something?
It was blowing up.
Yeah, I think we had 300 some servers to patch. Yeah. Yeah, this is not. Well, this is why I'm really glad that OpenBSD is taking on rewriting OpenSSL.
Someone needs to.
Well, they're the ones that will do it right.
Yeah. Do they get funding? Do they?
They collect it from whoever's willing to give it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear Ted very, very well. Will you just like talk to Ted? Hear it in a normal
Well,
speaking voice?
the problem is I'm likely to overwhelm this mic because my voice is kind of loud. So maybe I should like swap with Devin. My voice carries no matter what. So.
Hello, how are you?
Devin, my voice carries really strongly, and I'm next to the mic.
Do you want to swap? Oh, mine goes too great. Okay. All right, Vita.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Are we talking to? Are we doing a sound check for live or
For the internet.
For the internet.
Yeah.
testing? Testing. Hello.
And then on this side of the table.
Hello, I'm eating a carrot.
Hi, I'm watching him eating a carrot.
I have allergies, so I'll be sniffling next to the microphone.
Oh, good.
Did I book it? No carrots involved. I'm near carrots. I'm near carrots.
All right.
We are going to get started in about another 3 minutes. Just letting folks take their seats.
Including Bookus.
So,
Keep talking about
so if I just, even if I can hear you right now, so you can say that. Love that.
Sorry, what? We can't hear you from all the way over there.
You're just now talking about berries.
Oh, geez. I always wonder how that works, actually. I've never been on streaming YouTube before.
Everybody, make sure their cell phones are off. Okay, hi everybody. I am Scott Case, I'm one of the co-founders of Data Developers Academy, and I'm here just for a very brief moment to introduce Elise Worthy, one of the other co-founders and panel. So as hopefully everybody here knows, Data is a 12-month software development training program for women. 6 months in the classroom, followed by 6 months internship with some super cool tech companies in the Seattle area. So, also, if you haven't read this part of on the website, tuition free for women, for the people participating in the program, and the students receive a scholarship throughout the whole thing. So it's in order to basically help you get through the 12 months of being not in the workforce and learning. So I think, Elise, was that everything I need to say?
Sure,
Awesome. Yeah. So without further ado, Elise Worthy, and then we'll go from there.
Hello, I can see myself in the Hangout and I'm oh so tiny, so this is really funny. So as Scott mentioned, my name is Elise Worthy. I am one of the co-founders along with Scott and Susanna Malarkey of the Technology Alliance. And I'm also the program manager for Ada Developers Academy. So although I don't help out with the classroom so much, I'm doing a lot of the administrative side. And in that role, I have the great pleasure of moderating this panel tonight. We have people that are involved in Ada in a few different capacities here who are going to share their experiences, particularly how the last 6 months for the first cohort has been. So without further ado, flashcard number 1. For everyone, please introduce yourself, where you work, and how you're involved with Ada. And we'll start with you, Davida.
Hey everyone, I'm Davida. I am currently interning at Chef, and I'm one of the students of the first cohort.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm interning at Liquid Planner, and I'm also a student.
My name is Bookus. I am the lead instructor in the classroom.
I'm Devin. I work at Foundry Interactive, which is one of these sponsor companies, and I was also a mentor and did a bit of guest lecturing in the classroom.
I'm Eric Hodel. I work at AT&T, and like Devin, I've been both a guest lecturer and helped out kind of as a TA in the classroom.
I'm Ted Bardouche. I work at Marchex. I've been on the steering committee of Ada since early on, and we're one of the sponsoring companies.
Wonderful. Okay, so first question is for Davida and Audrey. When applying for the first class, what made you originally interested in Ada?
I guess I'll go first. I have been interested in learning to program for quite some time. I'm a little bit older than I look, and so I sort of felt that I was past the window of having both the time and the resources to go back to school and learn how to program. So when one of my friends told me about the Ada Developers Academy, it seemed like a really good confluence of all the things that I needed in order to be able to learn the things that I wanted to do anyway. And so I jumped on the opportunity pretty much as soon as I could.
I'd say for me,
it wasn't until I heard about Ada that I really started seriously considering that I could learn how to code. It was something I'd seen some of my friends doing. You know, I knew some people in school who had studied computer science, but sort of assumed that that was something I had missed the boat on, and it was sort of like, oh, that's too bad. That could have been really cool. Hearing about it just set off this kind of light bulb in my head, because I think unlike self-study, at least for me, or some of these other boot camps I'd heard about, I felt confident that if accepted, this could actually be something that would work for me. I kind of tried looking at some Coursera courses, doing some study on my own, and found that really intimidating and didn't really see that being something that would pan out and be successful for me, and saw this as sort of a unique program where it seemed like in addition to actually learning some code, there was actually going to be a successful component. They really did want us to succeed, and there were things built in that weren't necessarily part of other programs. So for instance, the internship, having mentors, having it be a much longer program, I felt a lot more confident going into it. That sort of what they were saying was something that was really going to pan out.
Thank you. Okay, next question is for Ted. As a company sponsor and steering committee member, you've been a long-time proponent of the ADA program. Thank you. So what makes ADA so special?
Well, it's mostly represented by the people on this panel. The students, the instructors, the volunteers have really made this a really special program. And I think what really sets ADA apart from any of the other program out there is the intensive and immersive format that is used. I mean, when I went to college, I'd do a chemistry class in the morning, a math class in the afternoon, and an English class in the afternoon. Well, that was fine, but I didn't remember all that much of the first class by the time I was through with the third. There's just so much context switching, and as those who have been in software for a long time know, context switching is anathema to being good at software. So being in an immersive 8-hour-a-day, 5-day-a-week program, really the amount of information that these women learn and retain is phenomenal compared to the time that it takes of just 6 months to get them out of the classroom. And I think the other big thing for me is Marchex is a very highly collaborative development environment. We do a lot of pair programming, test-driven development, and these are things that are taught to the students from day one, and that really makes an enormous difference. So we get interns from traditional colleges, they don't know anything about pair programming. They don't know what test-driven development is. They don't understand some of the practices and concepts. And having someone who hits the ground running because they already know how to do work in the way that we do it really helps us get people that we know are going to be really productive. I think the other thing is, because these women are together in one classroom for 6 months, it's a mutually supportive environment, and it gives them the ability to learn from each other and to build a network. And I mean, networks are everything when it comes to finding where you're going to work and where it's going to be good for you. And really, I think watching all of them bond together and become a team and a unit has been just a great thing to see. And you know, just the way they came up with the name 80s, for example, for themselves, I thought it was really fun. And you know, then it's just also the continuous improvement as time goes on through the 6-month process of getting more and more and more complex projects being worked on really provides a great foundation for, yeah, there's simple things you can knock out and there are complex things you can do. And seeing that whole span really helped a lot too. And everybody who saw the Capstone projects was quite impressed. And the bottom line is, it's making a difference.
Awesome. Thanks, Ted. All right, so back to you, Davida and Audrey. So I'm sure lots of people in this room and on the video are wondering, how did you prepare for the ADA program?
Well, after we submitted our applications, we got an email back that actually listed a bunch of awesome resources to check out if you had time. And I was working at Bluebird Ice Cream at the time, so I had a lot of free time. So they linked specifically to the Code Academy Ruby program, which I made most of the way through, which I think doing some like basics is really important. We certainly like advanced past that pretty quickly in the classroom, but having that basic foundation of knowledge was, I think, super useful in the first couple of weeks.
So I actually prepared mostly. I mean, we had about 2 or 3 weeks. It was like a very quick turnaround for the first cohort. We found out we've been accepted, and I think it was like 3 weeks later we showed up the first day. Honestly, I spent most of that time just trying to relax in preparation, because once it started, it like really started, and for 6 months it was a lot of work. I think I tried to install Rails and got very confused and emailed Bookus before I met him and was like, I'm really confused, and like tried. But for the most part, I actually found that to be a really good way to prepare, was just to kind of like know what was going to be happening, and kind of get situated and ready for that mentally.
I'm actually going to step back and say, even before you knew you were accepted, what were the things that you did to prepare for your application? And did you talk to other people? Did you just jam through it in a night? What did you do?
Well, I think I was probably the first person to submit her application. I submitted mine 2 days after the window opened, so I got it done really fast. But I talked to a lot of people during the process. I talked about the logic problem with some of my friends, especially since, and I know that they're doing this again, there was some, like, come up with some alternative solutions. So I kind of threw a bunch of my alternative solutions off my friends and saw, like, what they thought was good and interesting and well thought out. I did not show my video to anyone. But yeah, a lot of talking to people about the general process and whether or not they thought it would be a good fit. I got a lot of good advice from a lot of my friends.
Yeah, I'd say I also didn't show my video to anyone, but just taking the time, even though I think it was a quicker window of applying, to just feel really good about the application, even if there were parts that felt really unfamiliar, just like that I was submitting what I felt like was really representative of what my best work could be. I think one of the benefits of this cohort is that there is a lot more time to be like thinking about it and really making sure, you know, like, is this what I want to be doing? Talking it through with friends, talking your application, you know, like whatever logic questions, you know, you're trying to make sure that you're doing the best you can. Just like, I guess I encourage you to take that time, because I think that's one of the advantages you have this time around, is you do have more time to prepare.
All right. Okay, Bookus, this one's for you. Can you give us a rundown of the ADA curriculum? And I'll wait for the second one, since this is a two-parter.
Okay. The rundown of the curriculum, sure. So it's a 6-month curriculum, essentially. We start from like day 1 of Ruby. And, well, actually before that, it's Install Fest, which is, I think, the most confusing day, where you just install everything that you'll need, or everything that you'll need through the whole program, primarily Ruby and Rails, and just get them going. There's a lot of things that you can run into on that day, so we get that out of the way first. After that, we start with Ruby. I think the first, 4 or 5 weeks are just Ruby projects. In the beginning, it's really small lectures, kind of repeated over and over. And then we start some projects around week 3, I think. Smaller Ruby projects, just writing little programs, trying to just get some of the concepts kind of ingrained from idea to practice. After we get some basics of Ruby and just kind of some computer science ideas, we move into web frameworks, because ultimately that's kind of what the goal of ADA is producing web applications. So we start with Sinatra, and we spend a few weeks on that. And that will really introduce a lot of the concepts that are really in Rails. And for the majority of the time will be Rails focused. So we generally have 1-week projects. Some are longer, some are shorter, and they will be in pairs or groups or individually working in Rails. And most of the curriculum is just going to be taking different topics from Ruby and Rails and introducing them, practicing them, doing them in projects, presenting them, etc. And we do throw in some more computer science topics, a little more advanced as we go, and just, you know, there's a lot of topics to cover. So we try and just kind of sprinkle little things here and there in deployment. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Cool. Okay, and then what's a typical day like in the classroom?
Okay, typical day. So we start bright and early, 9 a.m. We will usually, and in the early parts of class when we're just doing Ruby, we'll usually have some type of quiz or small assignment to start with, just to kind of get people thinking and refreshing from what we did the day before. Pretty quickly after that, we'll move on to a lecture. Those will generally be 2 hours-ish, sometimes as much as 4, sometimes as little as 1. And early on, it'll be more lecture heavy. And then as we move forward, usually the second half of the day will be devoted just to project time. On a lot of days, we'll have guest instructors and guest lecturers come in. People like Devin and Eric will come in and teach on their expertise. So that could be maybe a session in the evening as well. And that's it.
Thank you. So the class is 9 to 5 plus some number of hours of homework and evening commitments occasionally. Yes. All right. Next up is for Devin and Eric. As volunteers, how do you help out in the classroom?
Okay. So I usually would show up after lecture time during project time, and I started after most of the basics have been covered, so the students were doing their projects, and so I'd sit in the back and listen to the students, and usually they had enough knowledge to go and figure out answers to stuff amongst themselves, but when it was something that was more difficult or beyond what they had been taught, then I would help them with those things that were more difficult. But it was really nice to see that I could just sit there and listen and hear what problems people had, and then one of the other students would say, oh, well, to solve that problem you do this, this, and this, and then that's how you work around the issue.
Yeah, a lot of it is listening, seeing how people are struggling with problems, how they're trying to solve problems, what solutions they've already tried. I actually haven't been doing a lot of development lately, so I felt pretty rusty pretty quickly trying to help people, but what I can do, even if it's not an area of my expertise, is a lot of this is learning how to solve problems in software is usually about how to ask the question. Sometimes it's just asking Google. But trying to figure out how to ask the question of a person who knows more than you do is a big part of this process, and that was something that I think I was pretty helpful doing.
I think as well, teaching troubleshooting steps for there's a lot. I haven't worked with Rails very much recently. On a lot of the projects were in Rails, so I'd be like, well, I think it's this, so let's try this and see if the error message changes, and let's try this other thing and see if the error message changes, and well, let's write a test to figure out to reproduce this bug so we can more quickly diagnose the problem. So just like the basic techniques for when you run into one of these problems and you don't know the answer right away, what are the tools and techniques you need to learn how to fix it?
I think something else we were valuable doing, since we were both sort of practitioners out in the field, it's very different sitting in a classroom learning how to do work. They do a great job of trying to replicate sort of agile development processes in the classroom. However, it's still in a classroom. It's not actually with a client, in a professional setting. So I think one thing we could help with was sort of provide some context for not just how to solve the problem, but in a real situation, at this point, this feature would probably get cut because of the timeline, things like that. Sort of providing some more context for the differences between the classroom experiences and the real world experience.
Yep, and in addition to that, for more of the open-ended projects, helping the students pick which features would be easiest for them to implement if they had a limited amount of time.
Yeah, that is something that's can be a challenge at Ada. Is since most of our stuff is project-based, deciding what not to do can be really interesting because it's not so much like a regular classroom. We're actually asking you to make real web applications. So sometimes you have to either cut corners or make trade-offs.
And that's, I think that was just very much a problem of ambition, because the students were all very ambitious. They wanted to do all these great things. But
The correct way.
and
Sometimes there isn't a correct way.
And sometimes it was just like, yes, all those things are great, but you only have like a week to do this. So which things are most important to you? So we can guide you on, doing what you want as best as you have time for.
All right, we'll go on to the next one. This is back to you, Davida and Audrey. So in addition to Lucas and Devin and Eric, you've been in the classroom, but you've actually been doing the hardest job of all. What's it like to be an ADA student in the class?
It's really hard, to be honest. It's amazing. This has been the best educational experience of my life. And it's been really amazing, and it's been really, really hard. I think all of us had to get used to failing a lot, and I think all of us were used to succeeding pretty much without trying at most of the things that we did in life. And that was just not, well, in general. Maybe this was me. But I think in general, like, all of our personalities were those of people who had pretty easy success, and then just kind of not trying the things that we weren't automatically good at. So this was a thing that we dedicated ourselves to getting better at, starting at a pretty terrible place. So it was really hard, but it's super rewarding when things start to click, when you start to figure things out, when you make your first web app. Like, those experiences were incredible, and all of the things that we failed at, we learned something doing. So, like, cumulatively, it was an incredible educational experience. I also really liked, I don't actually learn very well lecture-based stuff. I'm not very great at auditory processing. So what I really valued about this classroom experience is that there was so much project time and there was so much doing stuff. So I learned by doing stuff. I learned by failing, by breaking things, and we had so much opportunity to do those things. And we had awesome TAs and instructors to help guide us through that stuff.
Yeah, it was a pretty intense 6 months. I mean, it was overwhelming, I think, in a lot of different ways for all of us at different points. Just the fact that it was, for most of us, we were all pretty new to programming. We had different levels of experience, but it was, beyond anything any of us had ever really been exposed to before. So to go from, like, not knowing much about coding to spending, like, 8 hours a day doing it, I at least definitely experienced burnout at some points. I mean, there's just a point where you're frustrated, maybe it's just been a long day, it's been a long week. There are just so many things that you're trying to absorb at once that you can't always do it that day, or it's not going to make sense that week, or the 2 weeks, or whatever it is. And to just be able to see kind of the end goal and sort of the larger picture through a lot of the nitty-gritty frustrations can be difficult at times. On the other hand, I mean, I would say that beyond that, like, I hope that didn't discourage anyone, because it's been, like, an awesome process, and especially being in an internship now and looking back on that, I think sometimes it's much easier to see now what we've accomplished than to be in the middle of it. Because when, you're working on a project for 2 weeks, and every day you're staring at that one, like, bug that's not working, you're not appreciating that after 2 weeks you've learned so much more than you knew just 2 weeks ago about something. And to be able to be in an internship now doing things with other professionals, somewhat at their level, it's amazing to think that 6 months ago we couldn't have done that. And I think especially with the first cohort, they were very receptive to any feedback we had. I mean, I think for me it was actually challenging because I really do like lecture-based. I am very, like, I don't know, the traditional academic setting worked for me, so to have something that was much more nebulous, it was like, here are these things, go, like, try it, ask questions if you have questions, was sometimes very frustrating for me because I didn't have that immediate, like, affirmation, like, you're doing fine. Although we had Lucas is very good at affirming things.
You're doing great,
But so, I mean, that's something that we could say because we have one-on-ones, we have these check-ins, we had, like, weekly times when we all got together and said things. And they were very receptive to that, and so that was, you know, great, because it was like the program sort of changed based on what worked for us and what didn't as well.
Anybody else have anything to add? Classroom experience?
There was this point, like, about halfway through when everyone started asking questions differently. I think it goes back to, like, the part about, like, figuring out how to troubleshoot and figuring out the sort of the vocabulary of how to solve a software problem. And there was a point at which everyone stopped sort of asking, like, student-y questions and started asking more questions like people writing software. And I can't put my finger on exactly what it was, but there was this sort of shift in, like, people's attitudes towards doing the work. It was less like I have this assignment to do, and it was more like I'm building this thing.
Yeah, very much.
Awesome. Actually, that's a perfect segue to this next question. So you've had the benefit of being able to see the 80s transform from total beginners firsthand, and I think that's probably a pretty amazing transition. What's it been like working with the students as they've grown as developers?
First last time.
Okay. It's been amazing. Yeah, I was trying to, like, Elise sung us the questions ahead of time. I was like, I don't know how to answer this. It's just been, being involved with Ada has been one of the most rewarding things I've done professionally. I think part of it is I'm completely self-taught. Most of the people I work with at my company are completely self-taught. And sort of, it's been a slow change in the industry to recognize that that is an okay way to be a software developer. And it's just, it was important for me to, I wanted to help out for a few reasons. I wanted to help out, you know, because I thought this is the right thing to do. And also, it was also just amazing to see, yeah, I just keep coming back to, like, the change from being students to being developers. Like, I feel like you guys now know, you know, a lot more than I do in some things, and also probably a lot more than your peers know about some things. And just part of it was you were taught in a way that was not, that I don't think any other program is teaching people how to write software. So I don't know. It's just been spectacular. I'm still processing it. I mean, I'm still in it. Like, we have an intern now, and with Shage, and, you know, we're still in the thick of it. I'm still thinking about it. I wish that this had been a thing, you know, 10 years ago for me. So, and other people like me.
So the students are still meeting once a week during their internships to share experiences, and I've been coming in the afternoons for those and helping them with some, either their open source projects, or I've had a couple of the students ask me, well, in classroom we learned to do this thing this one way, and then when we look at our application we do it this other way, and then so I've gotten to see them develop their I guess developer senses about it's different, why is it different, and is that wrong, or how do I calibrate my code senses about how things are supposed to work together. And so that's been, I mean, that's several students have asked me that, so that has been, you know, really amazing that they're just like they've already got their own opinions about how things should be, and developed all these, you know, like intrinsic senses about how to write good software. And also from their capstones, what pieces should I put together to build this project that I want? And the capstones being very open-ended, they were all very, very amazing to see what they had, you know, started out with, you know, like just starting to think like a developer and ask developer questions to, well, I'm going to think up a project and I'm going to think up the requirements and I'm going to go and ask people. Maybe I think Audrey worked with the county, and, you know, so there were some external requirements, and building all these things together was very amazing.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, I don't think, I've never, a couple of my coworkers have gone through other boot camp style programs, and they I just don't think that they compare. They sort of were sat in a room and taught how to write Rails, and then just sort of let go into the world, and we're just sort of like, what do we do now? And so I think the fact that this panel is even happening, there's the program is sort of, it's learning from itself continually, and
And also in some of the internships, the students aren't working with Ruby, they're working with Python or Java or other languages. And I think if they had been told that at the beginning of the program, they would have been incredibly intimidated. But listening to them, they're just like, it's just a new language, and I already know how one language works and the other one, they all work the same. They're just what things are easy and what things are less easy or different, and how you write it is a little different.
Yeah, we're, even though our core curriculum is in Ruby, I think it's 3/4 of our internships for cohort 1 are in different languages. And so we're not just training Ruby developers, we're training software developers. And so we use Ruby as a tool to get you there, but it's just one tool of many. So anyway. Okay, next question, back to Davida and Audrey. So as Eric mentioned, you both had really interesting capstone projects. Can you describe that experience and the app you built?
So I worked on an app for a friend of mine who has a company that is trying to solve the water problem in third world countries, which is a pretty cool thing that he's working on. And so I actually paired on my capstone with my classmate Blake, who's actually interning for TED right now. And we both rebuilt the front end of their website. They're a bunch of scientists from UW, so they had kind of a terrible WordPress site. And we rebuilt the front end into something really beautiful that looked like a real business. They have a contract with World Vision right now, so we thought that it should probably represent the sort of work that they're doing. And we also built a bunch of data visualization tools for them so that they can record the data that's coming in from the field. They're putting a bunch of units out in the field this summer in Africa. So we built basically an app to visualize the data that was coming in from their sensors. And
what was the experience like?
The experience? It was. I just keep saying things are hard. It was a month-long project, which was our longest project. And as other people have talked about, we had all of these ideas for all of these great features, and then a lot of it was a lot more complicated than we thought it was going to be. So we had to pare down a lot of stuff and make sure, especially because we were working with an external client, make sure that the things that we were creating for them worked to their specifications and looked nice and represented them in a way that they really felt was accurate. And that was a really interesting experience because we did some sort of simulated client work within the classroom, but this was working with a real client who had their own ideas of what was the best. So that was really interesting. And I don't know what else to say. You can go now.
I'll talk on mine. So I chose not to pair for my capstone project. I worked on it on my own. And that was both a really challenging and a really exciting way to do it. The project itself, I wanted to use some open data from King County. I was really fascinated by the idea of being able to take data and make an app that people could use and interact with in a way instead of just having this huge Excel spreadsheet. So I found a data set from King County about locations in the county to drop off all those weird materials you don't know what to do with that you want to throw away but feel weird throwing away, like batteries and fluorescent light bulbs and used microwaves and stuff like that. So I created this app where you can basically put in what you're trying to get rid of, your address, And it will run through the data set and return a map kind of showing the closest locations where you can drop off your things. Sounds pretty simple. It actually turned out not to be quite that simple. And 4 weeks was like not enough time to do what I wanted to, so obviously you have to prune some of your features. But that was definitely what I can say now was like I am the most proud of this thing that I've created. It was something that I had an interest in, and from like beginning to end was able to produce. I like showed my app to someone, and he was asking like, so tell me more about like the team that was working on this and like what your role was. And I was like, well, like I'm the team. I like made this whole thing, which was an awesome thing to be able to say, and was like really like validating of all the work that we put into it that we can do something like that. Also, so I was working with King County. They were really excited that I was building this app using their data. So it's also been very kind of affirming that they've shown interest in it and have actually gone to the trouble of like critiquing it, which was like hard to take at first. They had all these like, oh, this is nice, but it was because they were taking it seriously and that like this was something they wanted to make as good as possible, potentially to actually use. So that was just a very different experience than a lot of the projects where, you know, Elise and Bookus have come up with this like fake client who wants this like fake app and we have like fake meetings about it, you know, so that's great preparation, but at the end of the day, we're not necessarily letting anyone reel down. But to be able to transition from that into a more real life experience was both scary and also very exciting.
I'll take that as a compliment as a project manager.
I never wanted to see Elisa's sad face. I saw the sad face a lot.
We have strict requirements and deadlines. All right. Okay. So next question. Ted, you're sponsoring an intern, as Davida said, Blake. At Marchex. Can you talk about how Marchex prepared for working with an ADA intern?
Yeah, no. Marchex had not done interns for about 6 or 7 years, so it was really like a new thing for us. And it was really fun to get ready. What we do, Marchex is a very highly collaborative company, as I mentioned, and we chose the teams for Blake to choose from as the ones that do the most TDD and pairing, because that's the environment that she had come from here. And we had the various team managers and mentors that would possibly be working with her all present what kinds of things they'd be doing, what the team was like, what the processes were, and so on. Blake then gave me a list of here are the ones she's most interested in. We talked about it and picked the team that she's currently working on, where I certainly from my point of view looks like she's pretty happy doing that. It's a Java team, so certainly she didn't get the opportunity to do much Ruby, although she did get to chime in the other day when we had a little bit of a Rails thing, and she's like, no, it works like this. That was great, because all these Java heads are like, Rails great. So it was great for her. She got to pull some of this real knowledge out. It was fun. We do use some Ruby, but just not that much. And her first week happened to be what we call Hack Week. We do twice a year. We just let the devs loose to do whatever it is they think is most valuable. So she and one of the senior guys on the team did a how do we work up a question to use during interviewing that is progressive so we can see people improve as they go through and give us a measure of how they do. And it was one of the best received projects that was done at Hack Week. So that was actually pretty cool. Basically, the way we look at it is she's a developer on the team, not an intern, not somebody we put in a corner and say, go fix bugs and come back when you've got them fixed or whatever. She is just one of the developers and rotates through all of the duties that anybody on that team does, which I think gives a good breadth to what's going on. We're also going to be adding some UW interns in a couple of weeks when they're through, so there'll be an intern community in the company that will be another group for her to be a part of, which I think will really help enrich the experience as well, because obviously very different backgrounds coming from there. And really to us, the goals are twofold. One, to teach the intern as much as possible. It's like one of the analogies is drinking from a fire hose. And the second is to have the intern contribute as she is learning, because this really, it benefits everyone at that point. And really, it just comes down to learn a bunch, grow, and become a part of the company.
Awesome. Thanks, Ted.
Yeah.
Davida and Audrey, Where are you interning? What languages are you using, and what's it like?
I'm interning at a company called Chef, which is very confusing because it doesn't actually have anything to do with food. They do automation configuration software, and I'm actually working with Ruby and Rails and a little bit of JavaScript. So it was, I was pretty torn about wanting an internship where I would get to learn something totally new or get to dig deeper into the stuff that we've already learned, and it's been really awesome because I kind of have a good basis for knowing what's going on, but there's so much stuff to learn. We're actually using an older version of Rails also, which has a number of pretty significant differences, which is really interesting to think about and see how everything works. It's been a really amazing experience. My whole team is remote, so I've learned a lot about collaborating over the internet and using a lot of video chat and figuring out the different problems and difficulties and also strengths with that. So that's been really interesting. But it's super awesome that we're working on stuff that is production code. We're doing things that are actually affecting the the product that they're making. So it's been super cool.
I'm interning at a place called Liquid Planner. They have project management software, so it's basically this huge app that businesses can use to manage all their employees, what their employees are doing, timesheets. There's a bunch of different features just to sort of streamline the process for any company that needs to kind of manage things. And the app is a Rails app, so that was a nice transition for me. And we also work with JavaScript. In terms of version control, we don't use Git, which is what we learned in class, but something very similar. So much of the tech stack has been very similar to what we were prepared with in Ada, which has been really nice. I have pretty much only good things to say about it so far. I think that the point of the internship has been to, be able to sort of ease us from being students to a more professional setting, and to have that sort of vague gray middle ground where we're still learning, but we also want to start really getting experience with what it's like in the real world. It's been a really safe place to be able to do that, but they're also definitely pushing, assigning bugs, assigning features, making me, push real code. That has been challenging, but also just sort of the right amount to make it something that I'm definitely growing from. Being treated, the acknowledgement that I'm still learning, that I'm an intern, but being treated really just like another member of the team and being taken seriously in that way has been really great.
That was definitely one of the things that was most appealing about this program, as I'm sure you guys all know. But all of us could get jobs right now, I think, at software companies. We all have learned enough, we're all good enough, but we still have so much to learn. We're always going to have more to learn, but it's really incredible to be able to further our education in this experience, in these companies that know that we're there to learn and want us to be able to become members of their company, but also acknowledge the fact that there's stuff that we're going to have more questions about, and we don't have to feel weird about that,
And I would say, speaking just for Liquid Planner, I guess, but probably for all of the companies, they're involved because they really believe in the mission of Ada. They believe about getting more women in the workforce, and they're, in the tech industry, and they are going to set up an internship that's going to allow you to succeed as much as possible. So at least for me, I had a mentor specifically where if I had any questions or just felt like I was floundering, she's someone I feel comfortable talking to. It's also just an environment that I feel comfortable in. They've been making an effort to hire a lot more women, and everyone's just been really open and wanting and encouraging and being there to help out when I needed it. So
these companies are incredibly invested in our success, which is an amazing feeling. Thanks, Chris.
All right, this is the last question that I have for all of you, and I'd like all of you to answer it. I think we've had a very successful first cohort. I'm personally very impressed. What are your hopes for our second cohort and beyond?
Oh my God, I was sorry. Go first, you guys. You know, I love our community. I think we've created a really awesome community of 80s, and I have really high hopes for the next cohort to build on that. I know we all are it's scheduled into our classroom time to come back and TA, and I'm incredibly excited for that. I'm really excited to help foster a greater sense of community. I think that there's incredible networking potential down the line beyond the just like incredible support network that we've already created. One of the things that I'm super excited about is for this program to become more established so that women who maybe can't afford to take the kind of risk that we all did will be able to. So I think that that is definitely a goal for the future that I am super looking forward to.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see sort of the amount that this program has grown even in the past 6 months, or, you know, was it like a year ago that you guys first had this idea? I mean, during the 6 months of class time, we were required to go to at least 3 like networking, community event type things. And in the beginning, you'd go and you'd introduce yourself and you'd say, oh, I'm studying at this program called Ada Developers Academy, and you'd just get kind of like blank stares and you'd have to explain it. People are like, oh, okay, that's cool. And like now I'll introduce myself and I'll say that, and I'm preparing to explain and give my spiel, and they're like, oh no, I totally heard about that. I think that's awesome. And it's like so cool to see how like the reputation in the community is already spreading so much, and that seems like it's only going to continue. And I think, yeah, this is just like a really great start to something that I hope becomes very well established, and just, you know, as it proves itself to be the awesome program that it is. I mean, we already know that, but like just to the larger tech community in general, I think there's a lot of potential, and that's very exciting.
I think that the things that I would like to see in future cohorts is, so the first cohort was pretty, I think, scary for everyone. It was very difficult for everyone. I mean, we you know, everyone put this program together very, very quickly, and you know, we learned a lot as we taught the students. So I think that, you know, on our side, just really streamlining the way that we teach, the things that we teach, the communication, you know, how we message the program, and really just let people know what we're going to teach, and we teach it in exactly that way in a very streamlined manner. And I don't honestly, I don't think it'll ever not be scary, because it's, I mean, as they're saying, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult program. I don't think it'll ever get easier than that, but at least minimizing all of that is kind of my goal for the future.
I think, sort of piggybacking on what Divya said about the network part of it, like this is sort of a new thing, and being a part of the program in any way, you're sort of joining this sort of secret club. I guess it's not a secret club, but one of the huge challenges that women face in tech is there just not being a lot of women in tech, or women leaving for various reasons. And so having this sort of larger and larger group of people, it normalizes, you know, in the industry, things that have just been really challenging for a long time. And so this is you know, it's a big thing. Like, did you guys feel, I'm gonna start asking questions. Like, did you guys feel like, you know, that you're like part of something bigger in that sense? I mean, you guys were the guinea pigs in a lot of ways.
I mean, I think,
but
like, sitting here now, like, talking about the experience, absolutely. Like, going into it the first day, it was like, what is this thing? I, like, sent in this application, like, talked to some people in a room. I guess that was an interview. Like, I showed up on the first day. But, like, absolutely now. Like, this thing has grown, and obviously, like, as Becca says, like, changed, and, like, we've all learned a lot from it. And I think, yeah, now it feels really like we are part of something.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think if nothing else, it's very telling in the responses that we've gotten from people and how excited people are to learn that this program exists, or to learn how they can become involved in it and how they can help. Just the sheer number of people who want to be involved in it, I think, is pretty indicative of what an incredible community it is.
I'm actually going to respond to that too. So I became involved in Ada very selfishly. I started learning to program on my own 3 years ago, and it was a lonely place to not have any technical experience and be, you know, the one girl at the user group asking all the stupid questions. And now to go to those user groups and see like half women is really pretty amazing. So I think we're changing what the norm is in Seattle, and that is going to be a model for the rest of the country. And I think that is an incredibly powerful thing.
There was a conference in Bend, Oregon, that one of our instructors, Carrie Miller, was speaking at, and she got the conference organizers to give us some discount tickets. And so 4 of us went down, and we, it was like 100, 200 people there, and some women came up to us, like we were in a group, we were clumped together like high schoolers, and some woman came up to us and she was like, "There's so many women here, this is amazing." And like the 4 of us had significantly increased the number of women in the room. And that, I'm really looking forward to later cohorts of Ada being able to just, pack us in there.
I think Eric can take that.
Oh, yeah.
So as a TA, my responsibilities are very low. So there's, sure, I would love to come back and volunteer for more of these, but I think one of the great things about the program was they on the days that I TA'd, they also had an after-hours session where I guess a lot of you from the audience would come in. And what I really liked is that I don't think I helped anyone during the after-hours sessions. It was all the students helping the people who would come in, and I thought that was really amazing that the students could, teach others about the things that they had learned and helped the prospective students get, the knowledge that they needed, and that I didn't have to do anything. So I thought that was really great that the program not only taught the students but also fostered this feeling of the students knew enough to teach prospective students useful information, useful skills.
Biggest thing I want from the second cohort is more. So we've signed up for 2 interns for the second one. There's so much demand, I'm not sure we're going to get that. So I'm staring at Scott here. But seriously, this is such an amazing program. I'm just looking forward to a lot of what, like Davida and Audrey said, the building of the community, the building of the group, the networking that will come from this, and the acceptance of this as the norm, that this is the way it should be. Women should be completely equal with men in this discipline, and there's no rational reason why there isn't. So let's get rid of the irrationality and just make this the real way it works.
Thank you. All right, so that's it for the cards. I was really excited too. All right, so we're going to turn it over to the audience and also Twitter. So I guess we'll go.
Introduce the 80s that are in the room so people know.
We're going to do this as a panel format, and then we'll do that after. Okay, so you want to get started, and if you feel comfortable coming forward and just saying hello, otherwise I'll repeat your question. Come on, Rachel.
Hi, my name's Rachel. Hi. I'm gonna.
All right.
This kind of was touched upon a little bit before, but I just love a little more clarity on how the second cohort will be different from the first in terms of demographics of students that you're going to accept, curriculum, and structure.
Do you wanna?
I'll talk briefly about curriculum. The first curriculum worked pretty well for us. What we're seeing from companies and students that maybe we could put a little more in is just like computer science fundamentals. So we'll be doing a little bit more of that. Otherwise, I think that we kind of hit the nail on the head the first time around. Honestly, I think that Ruby is a really good language to learn in. So we'll definitely be sticking with that. We do. I didn't really mention this. We do touch on a lot of other things, a lot of JavaScript. We probably will be changing. Not that many people have an idea of what the JavaScript week was like, but we probably will be changing the JavaScript section quite a lot to be a little more web focused and less JavaScript focused. But other than that, the Ruby format will stick basically the same. We do encourage people to explore in other languages on their own. There's a couple projects where people have the option of using a different language if they would like. I encourage people to use Python a lot just because it's so similar to Ruby. It was a nice way to branch out.
I want to say that I know many people in the open source community who don't have a computer science degree, and that it's very different learning computer science and learning how to develop, and I felt that Ada did an excellent job of teaching the students how to be developers, and that you can pick up the computer science fundamentals on your own as you encounter the things that you need to know about. And I think the internships have been particularly good at teaching that, even though it was it wasn't much of a focus for the first cohort.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, a lot of the engineers I have at Marchex and I myself am self-taught. I've never taken a computer science class. And I think you can pick up most of those fundamentals, as you say, on the job, and it works fine that way.
And your other questions were demographics and structure. Okay, so I think we covered structure. Demographics, I mean, that really is dependent on the applications that we get in.
They'll all be women.
They'll all be, yeah. So, and I'll actually piggyback on that. So we have an inclusivity statement that we accept cis, trans women and people of non-binary gender who feel comfortable being here. So I'll say that. But in terms of, we're looking for the top candidates who will succeed as software developers. If you're willing to apply, we want you. We're willing to look through your application, and so it's up to you.
The class will be bigger. It's not. We're gonna probably accept 24 students is our plan right now. No more than 24, up to 24, I guess I would say. That's about as big as we want to get for a particular cohort. But there will be more spots in cohort 2 than there were in cohort 1.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to go to Twitter. Sorry, this is going to be a really kind of awkward transition.
6 o'clock.
Oh. And for those of you on the webinar, that was Susanna Malarkey of the Technology Alliance off to the side. I realized a voice, a disembodied voice. Okay. So when can applicants know whether they're accepted and possible to intern elsewhere? So we'll just do when can applicants know whether they're accepted. So we will make applicant decisions by the middle of July. So you will know around July 15th. Okay, back out. Yeah.
So I guess it's sort of a two-part question. Just what was the rationale behind each part of the application? I just wanted to know what kind of thinking or what qualities you're hoping to elicit or that the applicants would display.
Sure. Someone want to take that? Someone take that?
So I'd say a lot of things that. So there's a few major sections to the application. If you don't know, there's just like the resume, and then there's logic questions, technical reading, and a video. Particularly in the technical reading and the logic, obviously we're looking for technical thinking, but also just motivation, creativity. There's a lot that goes into programming. It's not just following logic. You have to be really creative and critically thinking. So a lot of those, we're kind of looking for a lot of things. But those particular questions, the logic questions and the reading assessment, give the applicant an opportunity to expand on their answers. There's questions in there to come up with alternatives and stuff like that. So not only does it give us the kind of like technical thinking, but also shows us how they might go about thinking about a problem and where it might lead them. You want to talk about the video? Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And then, I mean, I guess the video, just to get a feel, you know, of the person, how they communicate. And communication is a huge part of this. The sort of stereotype of, you know, sitting alone and programming. You may be alone while you're programming, but you won't be doing it individually. That's for sure. As mentioned a few times, we do pair programming a lot, which means you're literally, it's two people on one computer. So communication is a really huge part of this. Obviously programming, but also just working with other people, your product owners, product management, and just your company, your team. There's going to be a lot of communication. So a lot of that comes through in the video. Is just how does somebody communicate an idea? How do they think about an idea, and express it to people in a way that is appealing to them. So I think that's a big part of what we're looking for there. And then something else that's kind of hidden, and we also hint at this when we send out links for other resources, is just motivation. That's going to be a huge thing. I mean, you know, all of our current students succeeded because they wanted to. They were all incredibly committed, and they came in and just like to put in 100% for 6 months, and they will all succeed. And so it's that motivation. You know, I think that we get that from a few different places, from all parts of the application process. But that's a huge thing that we're looking forward to.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So going back to Twitter, how do students get matched with their internships?
That's you.
Special sauce. Okay, so sorry. Students get matched with their internships over a very long period of time. We start out by matching students with mentors from the sponsoring companies, and in doing so, the secret sauce of that is we think we have a good understanding of where the students are going to fit, and we think we have a good understanding of what the companies are looking for. So we do those mentor matchings to see if there's a good fit. So students from this cohort had 3 mentors over the course of 4 months, and that was a way to softly get to know you. After that, the students went through a very intense set of interviews with all of the companies. I'm not going to lie, that was hard. But all of our students got to know all of our companies, and then a mutual matching algorithm was done. Maybe I tried to write it in software and it didn't work. So we looked at the students' preferences. They ranked the companies 1 through 5. The companies ranked the students 1 through 5, and we optimized for best fit. And I think that went really well. Our students are really diverse in their interests and the kinds of companies that they wanted to work with, and we're really lucky that our companies are just as diverse. So we have, you know, a 5-person startup, and then we have, gosh, I don't even know how many employees Isilon has, but tens of thousands. Yeah. So, you know, if you're looking for a more traditional engineering organization, we have opportunities there, or if you're really keen on working at a small, scrappy startup, we have opportunities there too. Okay, we'll go back to the audience.
So if I recall from the website, you guys are doing certification through Bellevue Community College. Are you going to do that again this year?
Yes, that's the plan. Yeah. Okay, we'll do. The Twitter one is so hard, so we'll just do one more.
Repeat that. I don't know if
yeah. So just for the folks on the on streaming. If you didn't hear that, we will plan to do certification through Bellevue College. That's upon graduation from the entire year of the program, so you successfully complete the classroom portion and then successfully complete the internship. Then you get a certificate in web development from Bellevue College, no additional charge, nothing else that needs to happen. Yeah?
Does the ADA intensive typically qualify people who are paying student loans to defer them because they are technically in school since it's an intensive, or does that vary on a case-by-case basis with the lender?
We're working on it. I think it does vary. Our relationship with Bellevue College is pretty new, so we're still working on all of those logistics. Okay, one more from the audience, and I'll go back to Twitter. Yeah.
I'm just curious what fueled the decision to teach the Ruby and not something else, a different language for curriculum.
I think Ruby is just a really approachable language. It's, I mean, you can just like Google, try Ruby, and you can start writing it in your web browser. It's very easy to approach. It's also, it was created with the idea of programming should be easy for people, not for computers. So the language kind of has this in mind of let's make this sound like it should sound. Let's make things sound like an English sentence. So it's a really good introduction. Obviously, it's a fully fledged programming language, just like any other, and all of the concepts will carry into other programming languages, but it's just kind of the most accessible. It also is very prominent in web development specifically, and very great for it, and it has a really, really active community. Including people like Eric is one of the contributors to Ruby. So it has a really active community and active in Seattle specifically. Mm-hmm. So it kind of has everything that we need right here in Seattle.
There's also a couple of different programs, RailsBridge and RailsGirls, that are designed to teach, designed to teach women the basics of a Rails app in a weekend. And so there's already some other curriculum that you can go out there and figure out if this is something that you'll at least be interested in.
Okay, this one is directed at students. How did the last cohort support themselves financially throughout the program?
Well, we had the scholarship, which was awesome. It was, for me, just about enough to cover rent and food, and really nothing else. So I wasn't living, I was sort of fortunate that I wasn't really living a lavish lifestyle to begin with. I just stopped drinking at bars. I was also very fortunate in that I communicated with all of my friends about what was going on, and I'm not very shy about being hey, I'm poor right now and I can't afford this, so thank you for this invitation, but I cannot do it. And then sometimes my friends would offer to pay for me, sometimes they wouldn't, and that's fine. But there's a lot of free stuff to do in Seattle, I guess. It's really tough. It definitely, I think, I was coming from the food industry, so the amount of money that I was making before was not so much more that it was a really big downgrade for me. But it's still, it is pretty limiting. This whole program is kind of tough on your social life because it is very overwhelming, and there's a lot of learning to be done, and I certainly was not always really that interested in hanging out with people after a 9 to 5 of studying. But the books in the curriculum were all provided. I know some people borrowed laptops because they couldn't afford to buy them. The classroom is really supportive of us in a lot of really awesome ways, I thought.
Yeah, I think, to anyone who's asked me about, do you recommend Ada? My answer is, yes, absolutely, but, it is something you really want to take into account, the fact that you are taking a year out. Maybe that means quitting your job you already had, whatever it is. It's a significant thing to think about. Similarly to DaVita, the stipend, it's a stipend. So for me, that's covering basically, rent, maybe transportation, and, food. But the consideration that that's not going to probably be enough as your only source of income. For me, that meant going into some of my savings, getting some financial support from family. I think everyone does it differently depending on their situation. I'd also been doing a lot of internships prior to this, so it kind of just was a continuation of sort of a frugal lifestyle for me. But I think that it's doable. Obviously, we all did it, but it's something to really think about how you might go about doing that, given that we have a smallish stipend every month.
Thank you. Okay, we'll do one more from Twitter. If the initial application is accepted, what does the interview process look like? I'm going to turn that to you, Ted.
Okay, so the way we deal with it, we first go through a process of reading all the applications, going through the logic problem, the reading, and the videos, and sort of eliminate those that are clearly not going to be highly successful in the classroom. And then we get a consensus of a number of people's input, because no one person should be able to say yes or no. And we'll go through, and they're usually, in this case, it was really clear these are the ones we should be talking to for interviews, and when we were done with the interviews, it was really clear these are the ones that will be really successful in the program. And it was pretty surprising how clear the dividing lines were once we got a look at all the applications and all of the interview results. And yet there were so many so qualified people that we wanted to be able to, but the class size was 16, so that's what we had. We're hoping this time that because the class size is a little bigger, we're going to be able to get more people involved and really be able to get another really great cohort together.
Can I ask you?
Oh.
So I've heard of the other boot camps up there. What's the difference between this one besides paying $12,000?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat that just in case folks couldn't hear. What's the difference between Ada and some of the other boot camps out there besides having to pay $12,000? Do you want to take that, Lucas?
Sure. So I'll say the biggest difference, I think the one that makes the biggest difference is just the length. So most other boot camps are, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks. Is that kind of where we're at, I think? And so it's a year-long program with a promised internship. And so those two things, just the exposure, just having that much time to learn is totally different. It's a totally different experience. I think in the shorter boot camps, that 8 to 12 weeks just isn't enough time. Just like pretty plainly, it's just not enough time to learn these concepts because they are very abstract. You can't just like read it and then do it. You have to have time to process. And then the internship is the other difference. And as they kind of mentioned, that's a really crucial time. If you learn something and then you're just let out, just say like go find a job, that's obviously really intimidating. But you're not really set up for success because you don't really have you don't really have a leg up on anyone else in Seattle who may be looking for a job. And where these internships, obviously it's a learning experience, but it also just gets their foot in the door at a company, and just on their resume, even if they don't stay at that company, they now have a specific company on their resume to say I worked 6 months at Marchex or wherever it is. So I would say those are the differences that are really making a difference. I'm sure there are a lot of other small bits.
Yeah, to me it's as Book has said, it's the length of the program. It's also teaching not just a skill, but the skills all together that are needed to be successful. So it's not just here's Ruby, or here's whatever language it is. It's a lot of these boot camps will focus on. I don't see this as a boot camp at all, because it's not learning a skill. This is an actual school that is immersive and intensive and brings out women that know how to write software and are fully capable of being developers. So to me, I've never wanted to hire someone from one of the boot camps, and as one of my senior managers said when we finished the interviews, he would gladly take any one of the women onto his team immediately. So to me, that's the bottom line difference.
I'd like to add something too. I mean, I don't know necessarily what the curriculum of other boot camps is, but something going into this program, I was like, okay, we're going to learn like Ruby on Rails, we're going to learn some languages, but so much more of it was like taking that knowledge and applying it to the real world. So actually like deploying applications, like understanding how the internet works, like knowing what an HTTP request is, things like that. Like that was the most challenging part, and that was the part that I'd never really been exposed to in any textbooks before. It's not what people talk about. People talk about like the syntax of JavaScript, but there's these like black boxes. It's like, okay, I know the language, how do I actually make a thing? And I think those are the most challenging parts for me, but I'm like so grateful now that I was forced to have to do stuff like that, because we really do know it from like the beginning to the end. We can like write the code, we can have it running locally, but we can also then go buy a domain name, like, you know, get it up and running and have a functioning thing. And that's what being a full stack developer is, you know. We can do all of it really, or at least have exposure to all of it.
Yeah. For the group of people who started in cohort 1, what was the completion rate? Did all of the students who started finish the program, or to this point?
The question was, what was the completion rate for cohort 1? We had 15 out of 16 students successfully complete the program and go into the internship. Yeah?
I know that one of the goals of Ada is to bring more women into programming and computer science into that world. And I know I'm hoping it's not just because, you know, women almost as good as men, just not. And it's more that women bring in oftentimes something that men don't. We're more interested in working together, where we manage differently, we have different ideas about how things should work. And I'd kind of like to hear a little bit about that, and if that's kind of a focus of the program, or if that's something that you've seen.
So the question, I'm just going to paraphrase it and tell me if I'm getting it right. Our philosophy isn't just, oh, women are an okay facsimile of men at programming, but actually that we contribute a lot more and bring a lot of different things to the table and teams. Is that? Different perspectives, yeah. It is well researched and well documented that more diverse teams produce better results and are able to solve complex problems better. And that's core to our philosophy. Certainly a group of all expert computer scientists who went through the same program are going to all solve the problem the same way. And something that is as ever-changing and nebulous as the internet, that doesn't really make sense. Like, let's get developers who, you know, understand the customers. Let's get developers who have worked in customer service and know what the problems are. That just makes sense. There's no such thing as a good developer or a bad developer. There's a wide range of what a good developer is, and that's core to our philosophy. And even within our classroom, we are very diverse. So all we're doing is moving the needle to make it easier for women to get in. It's, you know, we're not saying anything about any ridiculous claims about any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've got one thing that's interesting. A good friend of mine is a director of engineering at Facebook, and he put together a engineering leaders in Seattle dinner that I was fortunate to go to. And 4 of us engineering leaders were talking together, and our experience was mapped to all of us that the best teams we have are the ones that have at least 1/3 women. So it's not that they're, as Elise said, we don't want photocopies of men with different attributes. We want women because they are different and make a team better when we get to at least 1/3. We've all had up to 2/3. We've never seen 100%, so we don't know how that will work out. Want to get there, but we certainly have seen that there is a measurable difference that all of us have seen in the productivity and particularly the quality of the code that comes out of teams that are, like I say, at least 1/3 women.
I mostly work on open source, and I get bug reports from people who don't speak English as a first language, people who do things that I don't understand with the software that I wrote. And the more diverse the people are that use my software, the better it is. And so I think having more viewpoints, whether it's more women, more people who don't speak English, more whatever that's not currently around, just makes the community of software better and the results better.
Yeah.
I have a question for the students. What was their experience with programming or tech in general before they started?
So the question was, for the students, what was your experience in programming or tech in general before the program?
I think in general we had a really broad range. We had people who had never coded before. I don't think we had anyone who had taken more than a class or two. I have my master's in library and information science, and I took a programming class in that, and it was programming for artists, and it was drawing pictures with a language called processing, which is a terrible name for a language. You can't Google it. And that was 5 or 6 years ago, and I had taken it and been really interested in it and didn't know how to do anything with it because I'm not an artist. So yeah, I had some foundations for sure, but didn't really know how to do anything, if that makes sense.
My background was I took one intro to Python class in college like 5 years ago. Thought it was pretty cool, liked it a lot, but that wasn't the track I was on at the time. It was enough to know, at least when applying to this, that like, oh, this is something I liked and like made sense and was challenging, but like I'm up to it. I just don't know any of it yet. So I think it was helpful to have some minimal exposure to at least kind of know what you're getting into. But beyond that, I mean, it was like, when I was 10, I had like a Yahoo GeoCities account, and I like made a website for every like pet I had ever owned with HTML or something like that. But it was pretty minimal.
So just to sort of clarify from Ada's side, we don't want students who could currently get a job in software. So we're not retraining people. If you can get a job in software or recently had a job in software but just want an update on your technologies, this isn't the program. And also, like, we're not looking for any minimum bar. We're looking for that motivation. Most likely the people that we will accept will have gone through the online courses or some tutorials, but the thing that really interests us there is just the motivation, that they went out and did it, not that they know the content. We start day one literally opening the terminal and explaining what it is. That's kind of the first step. So we don't have any basis for it. You have to have some amount of technical knowledge to get in.
Yeah. Did either of you relocate very far, and like was it hard finding housing and then immediately going to class like 3 weeks later?
I didn't. I was already in Seattle. I mean, that for me made the decision a lot easier to be able to like learn about it, and then the next day I was like, yeah, like I wanted to stay here. This is awesome. But
come on. Come on over here.
Yeah.
So we've had some questions from Twitter too about what it was like to relocate anyway. So this is Galena. She's also a student and totally put on the spot.
So I relocated from Northern California. I found out about the program 3 days before the deadline. I applied, I got in, and I got an email 2 weeks later, are you ready to start in 2 weeks? And back then I didn't even think about anything. I wanted it so bad I couldn't like even imagine not getting in or having something on my way, like housing or anything. And so I decided I'm just gonna go there, and then whatever works will work. I know it will. So for 2 weeks, it was kind of, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't easy finding housing from zero. So we had to use Airbnb website until then. And you kind of have to have support from someone, or like because a lot of people want to know if you're going to be able to pay your rent, or if you are looking for someone to live with. That part was the hardest, but it worked out. I'm still here. I'm interning, and I'm enjoying it. If you have a more specific question, you can ask me or find me on Twitter through Ada, and I will give advice or whatever. I'll share my experience in more details.
I believe 1/4 of the first cohort relocated, coming from as far as Miami. Coming from Miami. So yeah, 1/4 of the class did it. It certainly was not easy for them. I think that housing is the biggest issue. Seattle's not a cheap place, and the market for renting an apartment is pretty competitive. So that's the hardest part, but it can certainly be done.
And the nice thing about your cohort compared to cohort 1 is if you are accepted, you will know a lot sooner. So you'll have more time to prepare. Like Lena said, literally she had 2 weeks to this. We would not inflict that on anyone else. All right. Let's see, we've got 2 minutes, so any closing questions? Yeah.
If not accepted, do you guys inform us that the application was not accepted?
So if you're not accepted, will we inform you? Yes. Yep. And that would be around that mid-July timeline. Yeah.
When is the interview process going to begin?
The question was, when is the interview process going to begin? Tentatively, it's going to be probably right around the end of June. We're still locking down the dates. So it'll be end of June through mid-July. Yeah?
Just for all the people on the webinar who are not in Seattle, if they get to the interview process, is it possible to do like an online interview, or do you want it in person?
So the question was, is it possible to do an online interview, or does it have to be in person? We would strongly prefer that it's in person. Part of the interview is a pair programming exercise, and it's really difficult to do that over Skype. But if that's the only option, then we will take it. Yeah.
I guess a question for the students. What is it like entering the culture of the developing world? And then also, what are your plans next?
Do you want to repeat the question?
Oh, okay. The question was, for us students, what has it been like entering the community? Is that what?
Culture.
Culture. The culture.
I have no idea what it's like.
Yeah. And what are our plans next? It's been fine. I haven't had any. I've found pretty much across the board, everyone's been really excited at my company to have me there, really understanding from where I'm coming from, and really eager to help me grow and learn, as well as the Ruby community at large. We, as Audrey said a little bit earlier, we were required to do at least 3 community events per month, which we didn't have to go to the Seattle Ruby meetups, but a lot of us did because they happen pretty frequently, and some of our TAs went to them, so we would know people. And it's always tough entering a new community, entering a new culture. And there's a lot of men, and sometimes they will say things that are kind of careless or dumb. I didn't feel like anything malicious ever happened. But in general, it's been pretty great, I think. And my plans next, I mean, we still have like 5 months left of our internships, so I'm trying to get through that. I really like the company that I'm interning at, and hopefully they'll want to hire me. But I also feel like partly because of the community events and partly because of the incredible caliber of our TAs, we've made amazing contacts through the course of this program, and I feel really confident in my ability to get a job when this is all done, especially like Davida in 5 months. She's going to be amazing.
I would say one thing that I've learned going through all this is just that, like, it's not just like the tech community. It's not even just the tech community in Seattle. There are so many different little sub-pockets in what people are interested in, and some people kind of gravitate towards a specific language, so there is a really strong Ruby community in Seattle. There's also just people who gravitate towards different types of interests of what you can do with different things. And so, like, at first, I think we all kind of just were thrown out there and we were trying a bunch of different things and seeing what kind of piqued our interest. And at least for me, that wasn't necessarily, you know, your standard stereotype of what you might think of what the tech community is. I have found a really cool community of like people who are really interested in open data and using tech to really promote a lot of civic engagement and things like that. That's something that I really had no idea about, like, first day of class. But just started going to meetups. I mean, you know, we were required to do networking events. Some of them you do feel more awkward. You don't necessarily feel like it's your place. Others you're like, oh, like, I'm clicking with this people. This is sort of my thing. So I just sort of gravitated more in that direction and ended up doing my capstone, you know, using open data. And that's something that I'm still really interested in. So I think it's just kind of about finding your niche and where you fit in all of it. And that doesn't necessarily have to be where anyone else is otherwise. And yeah, I mean, like Davida, it's still trying to get up and running in internships. So what happens in the fall happens. But I'm also very confident that, you know, I'll find a place I'm happy at, whether it's where I am now or elsewhere.
I've interacted with hundreds, maybe thousands of different developers, and you will find some that are less nice, and I've certainly been less nice to people from time to time. But overall, the feeling that I have is that usually everybody wants to work together to make software better or learn something. So maybe you'll run into me not being as nice, and you'll just go talk to someone else, or someone else who's less nice, and you know, it's not. They may, you know, that just may be their online personality, and in person they're fine, or whatever else. But it's not like there are a bunch of mean people out there.
And when you're looking to select a company, look for one that has something like a no jerks hiring policy. We actually have that, and there are a number of companies that do, because as Eric said, there are some people who are jerks in software, and try to avoid them. There are so many places to get employment in software. You don't have to settle for a place that's got jerks.
All right. Okay, so we're over time for the panel. We want to give some time for the current students and prospective students to network and grab some food and stuff like that. So I'd just really like to thank the panel's time and give them a round of applause. If we didn't answer your question, whether it was here, hopefully we can answer it tonight. Or feel free to email contact@adadevelopersacademy.org. I'm happy to answer those questions as well, or through Twitter. So thank you again. I'm going to walk over to the live stream and turn this off. And otherwise, we've got food and beverage in the back. And yeah, thanks for sticking around. Current 80s, can you raise your hand just so folks know to talk to you? Okay, thank you.
Me too.
Did you drink all of that one?